everyone, my name's Kevin from Moonlight Mantids, and you're watching the Praying Mantis channel. Today's video is about giant roach care, specifically the Giant Cave Roach, but a lot of the setups that I use for keeping, breeding, culturing my giant pet roaches are the same. So the first half of this video, it's very basic, but it wouldn't hurt to cover that for everyone just in case. I'm going to be talking a lot about some very general things. This can be applied to many species. For this video, I'm just going to use a 10-gallon tank, which is what I would use or recommend for a large species of roach. The roaches we're going to be working with are the Giant Cave Roaches, not the Peruvian caves, but the Giant Caves, which are in fact the longest, technically largest roach that you can keep in the pet trade, that are, I would say, in the more roachy side of things, not like a hisser, but they have their own merits. So we also use a glass top here, and then I'm also showing you the suction cups that I like to use to pick up the glass lids, because these are cut to size tanks. The size of the glass should be about 19 3/8 inches by 9 3/4 inches, and it costs me about $2 or $3 per piece of cut glass, which you can get from like a hardware store, any local hardware store. You just call them up and ask them if you can get a piece of glass cut to those dimensions, and it's going to fit a standard size 10-gallon tank. It's going to fit right inside the lip there. This isn't an airtight setup, and you are going to be opening this up quite a bit. And the only way to get it open is if you have a suction cup, which is really great for maintaining moisture, which some people have issues with misting 1, 2, or 3 times a day with some species. I use this as a basic sort of vivarium, most moisture holding sort of setup. I like to use glass because I like to enjoy the insects that I have, so I don't like plastic containers. You can use any old suction cup that you have though, but I just showed one product from ZoomEd that actually sells suction cups that I like to use. Also, you're going to want to use some painter's tape, so when you get your glass cut, you're going to cover the edges so you don't cut yourself. The painter's tape that I like to use, I don't know if I should name drop, but it's frog tape, and I like it because it's neon green. I use it for labeling. But you'll be taking that and covering the sides of the glass so you don't get cut, and it's very important since this is a customized sort of lid that we have created. I know a lot of people have asked me when they look at my larger invertebrate tanks with these glass tops, they worry about the oxygen exchange. You're going to be opening the tank at least once every day or every other day to add in some food. So they're not going to run out of oxygen in that amount of time unless there's a massive number of very large invertebrates in this tank, which would require some oxygen exchange, but you can offset it just a bit, and that'll help make sure that nothing suffocates, although it has never ever happened to me. I never have a problem with these tanks, but I do know that a lot of these roach species will not breed unless the moisture is correct, so this is far more important than worrying about something that is a problem for most mammals. It is not a problem for, smaller animals such as invertebrates. They're not going to run out of that oxygen in the amount of time it takes you to check on them, feed them, and do all the other things you need to do. I've even left them for several weeks with no problems, so they're very important for maintaining moisture, and I highly recommend them. This is a very inexpensive way to do something really special and a very highly visible, customized tank like this. I'm just showing you guys how I do it, and it's brought me a lot of success. They reproduce really quickly. Let's go over some of the other materials. Now, officially, I am technically a ZoomEd and Exoterra dealer now, so I can sell their products, and I love ZoomEd and Exoterra especially. This is the EcoEarth brick, the single pack, which is usually about $3 or $4. You can get it online, you can get it at most pet outlets. Then they have the actual bag, which is full of loose substrate. This is really great for when you're building a vivarium and you're going to adhere the dry coconut fiber to the sides of your enclosure with silicone or Gorilla Glue or whatever it is you like to use. But this is already a loose version. I don't usually use the loose version because I tend to go through quite a bit of EcoEarth, and I prepare them in these large tubs that Rubbermaid likes to make. These are measured out by quarts, So as you can see, they are usually they go up to 12 quarts, and for one solid brick you're going to need 4 quarts of usually what I use is warm water, and that just makes things go a little bit quicker when you're trying to rehydrate the substrate. Even though this is kind of silly to some of the viewers that I have, most of you haven't used the substrate before or have even considered keeping invertebrates, so we're just gonna do everything from start to finish, and this is just a time lapse of us rehydrating our Eco-Earth substrate. I've always loved using this product. I don't know what's so fun about it, but rehydrating these bricks is really fun. It does make a lot though, so be prepared to hold on to some of it for quite a while, unless you happen to go through it like I do. While I'm at it, I'm going to show you a few other products from Zoo Med. This is frog moss. It will actually come back to life. It is somewhat alive in the container. You just have to hydrate it, which is great. And then the sphagnum moss, which is also alive or somewhat alive and will come back. It is very natural. A great product by Zoo Med, and it's great for maintaining the moisture level inside of your enclosures. This is regular Peruvian sphagnum that I usually get online. It's pretty basic. It's already comes in. It's kind of dried out, sort of dead. I use it more for compost inside the tanks. Then we also have our cork flats, which we like to use for our large roaches. This is a little less important, but I find a low watt, usually around 4 watt to 6 watt under tank heating pad works really well for large invertebrates such as our giant cave roaches. These are relatively inexpensive. You can adhere them to the sides of glass tanks only, as some of them clearly label. Zoo Med makes one, and then also Exoterra, and I really like both of them. You can use either one. They come with little pegs that go in the corners of the tanks to sort of bring them up off the surface. Being that they're low watt, they're relatively safe to use, and you just want to create some extra heat if you're keeping your invertebrates somewhere that is under 70 degrees. Usually you don't want to put them in a window. They don't like that. You want to keep them in a low traffic, sort of dark environment, but the heat that I would use is not a light, but rather a heating pad, very low wattage. These are some of the other substrates you can get from Zoo Med, like forest floor or repti-bark. I usually mix these in with my coconut fiber, my sphagnum moss, or different mosses that I like to use, and they really help create a more diverse substrate, which is good for microfauna such as bacteria, springtails, isopods, that I like to include with my large vivarium-like enclosures. If you can swing it, Repti-Soil is a really great product from Zoo Med. It includes all these things already together, including sand and carbon, a really great burrowing substrate that you can get. It's very natural, great for growing vivarium plants, great for reptiles to lay their eggs, for burrowing. You can incubate in these things. It's just really, really great substrate. It shows it here in the bottom. Egg laying, burrowing, maintains humidity, plant growth. It's tropical. It's just great. It's great stuff. It's relatively new. If you want to swing it, you can grab this or you can mix your own. It's not super critical if you can't get the repti-bark or forest floor mulch from Zoo Med. You can also use 100% natural organic mulch, like what I'm showing here, if you can get it. Once you figure out what your substrate's going to be composed of, all you do is mix it together. As long as you have at least 2 or 3 different components, including leaf litter, other composts are really great, and roaches and isopods, springtails really love that. Once you've put in at least an inch or 2 of substrate, depending on how many roaches are inside your tank, usually just a starter, a pair of adults, or something like a dozen or half a dozen young nymph, that's about all you're going to need. Just add as much cork bark as you like, a place for them to hide, and then just sort of design any way you like. They're really aesthetically pleasing tanks. It's really simple. You can do the same sort of setup for most vivarium type reptiles. They also really enjoy fish food, from what I find. It's a great protein source besides using regular plant matter, fruits and vegetables. Fish food is very fragrant, and they really, really enjoy it, so it really gets a reaction out of them when you feed them this, and I got some footage for that. I love feeding my roaches you can really get a really good response from them. They come straight out of the soil with their antennas poking out, and they really enjoy fish food. It's super fun to watch them eat. You can see babies of all sizes coming out of the ground here to feast. Most of my roaches can live to be, my cave roaches can live to be about 2 or 3 years old. It takes a minimum of at least 2 years for them to become adults. So this is a pretty long-lived species, and you're going to find that they have babies every few months or so, depending on how many you have. They're really great, and they're easy to handle. I don't think this species is capable of actual flight, but they do seem to flutter a bit when you hold the adults, and then they kind of jump from your hand and they seem to flutter down a little bit. That's about as much as I've been able to see. The nymph and the adults cannot climb, so they'll be completely contained within the tank, and they will not be able to get out unless there's something like a piece of cork bark going straight to the lid. They are really great pets, and it's fun to watch them take off a little bit. They're very gentle. Relatively docile after a while. This one's pretty used to being handled. I pick it up all the time and show people. It freaks them out how big they get. But they don't bite. They're completely harmless, and since these are farmed, there's absolutely no bacteria on them whatsoever. There's nothing that's going to hurt you at all. You can sex these by looking at the segment counts. This is a female. Same with mantids. The males have 8 segments, and the females have 6. This is a beautiful female. I know it's kind of strange, but once you get into keeping insects, you're going to learn just how awesome these roaches are. There's a lot of different sizes, but if you want something that's handleable, I'd say the Giant Cave Roach is definitely the insect for you. I'll see if I can't find you guys something smaller. They're going to vary in size, especially as they grow, but something that's usually about a month or 2. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, there we go. See, this is about 2, maybe 3 months old, pretty small, but you'll have a lot of different sizes in there. It takes a long time for them to grow into the very, very large disc-sized nymph. This one I would say is about maybe 1 year old. Here we have one that's closer to 2, and then in its 3rd year will definitely turn into an adult, sometimes a little sooner depending on how warm you keep them and how well you take care of them. It can really range a lot, and it's all dependent on temperature. So once you have your setup and your starter roaches, you're going to pick a nice piece of cork bark, which they're going to chew on. They're going to completely destroy it, so don't expect to get it back once you put it in there. Just try not to crush them if you can help it. They use this to shed from, especially when they become adults, and if they don't have something larger like this in there, once you have a large subadult nymph, then they will have messed up wings. And all you do is put your lid on, which you can offset a bit if you're worried, but to be honest, they should be perfectly fine, and this is a wonderful setup you can have and display. Well, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have lots more content for you. I've been up to a lot of different projects. I've been very, very busy, and I'm about to reveal all in time. Just keep watching and hit that subscribe button, and make sure you leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks again for watching. Bye.